Hi everyone, this is Charles, and I'm here. Yep, I've opened up AGEOD Civil War 2, and today we're going to be doing the tutorial basic series part 2. Yeah, so last time we left off, and we had just finished reviewing the map overlays, and I've clicked on to the next instructions, and it says basically go ahead and let's go ahead and take a look at General Grant's forces here in Henry, Tennessee. So um, if you have when you have a force, you can basically just put your mouse pointer over it, and that in itself tells you some information about it. And then you just left click, and it's going to bring up the force that you're clicking on. So then it wants us to go ahead and go to the next one. Now, all of this here, it's going to tell us it's basically kind of explaining some basic information about the forces. But I'm going to go through and give you some details on it now. So the Army of the Cumberland, I think it's Lew Wallace's command, and Sherman's Corps. These are what in AGOD's terminology are usually called different stacks. So a stack can be big, it can be small. That's actually not a military term. That's just a computer gaming term for here. Now the military terms are very important later on. An army and a corps and divisions, they all have distinct characteristics. So right now the Army of the Cumberland's flashing, and it has like this gray border, and it means that's the one that we are looking at right now. So in the Army of the Cumberland, we have what are called different elements. Okay, and in our elements, we have General Grant, we have the reserve cavalry, we have 3 batteries, and we have reserve supply. Now, so it says 6 units, or sometimes they're also called elements in the game, and this has a certain power of 330. Now, the power is not it's not 330 men. It's basically representing how much impact this stack can have in an actual battle. Okay, and if you add up these numbers and you take into account some multipliers, depending on some of the generals have benefits, it would come to 330. We can do the same with Lew Wallace's command. It's 670. So it's actually a larger, it's a bigger force than the Army of Cumberland, and so he has about 2 half-size divisions. So if you look at this in more detail, you'll see that it has 4 units, but each unit has really very different amount of power or fighting capability. So a division, this division here, for instance, has a combat power of 380, and it is made up of many other individual regiments and artillery batteries, for example. And Lewis Wallace has his is actually just slightly higher combat power of 391. Sherman's Corps, same kind of logic. You have General Sherman leading it, and then you have a division, and then you have an additional cavalry regiments, and then you also have supply. So these are 3 different stacks, and they all have different combat power depending mainly on the type of forces that are in the stack. Obviously, the number of men is important too, and then there are some modifiers. For instance, whether or not you have a supply unit, and different generals have different abilities. Let's go ahead and do one more. It wants us to go ahead and basically do a reconnaissance. So what we don't know is what is beyond, basically what is beyond Gibson, Tennessee here. So you can kind of see how it gets darker here. That means that this is in fog of war, and actually it says it in fog of war. So we actually don't know who is there. It could be 50,000 Confederates, it could be 0, there could be 100,000. We don't know because we're actually able to see anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Grant's, let's see, so it wants us to take Grant's reserve cavalry and move it to Decatur, Tennessee. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is this. I've selected Grant's stack, the Army of the Cumberland. I'm then going to select reserve cavalry, and I'm going to press the left mouse button and just simply drag it onto Decaturville. And now the computer automatically plots the simplest route to get there. It's just the cavalry unit's going to go from Henry, Tennessee, down to Decaturville. Okay, and then the instructions here are saying that yeah, go ahead and go to the next turn. Now I want us to go back and quickly look at Grant's stack or Grant's army, and you notice that the power has gone down to 165. So when we took out the cavalry unit, we took out some of Grant's fighting ability, and we've now reduced the combat power. So that's an important key point. So let's go ahead and go to the next turn. And if this is the first time you're seeing the turn being processed, what is happening is both I just made our orders, and the Confederates, in this situation, the AI made their orders, and then they're processed at the same time. So in complex game play, you have to also predict what your opponent is going to do. All right, now, so the units went down here, and now the fog of war has decreased, has resented. We can now see that there is a small force, Withers Division, led by General Braxton Bragg, combat power of 161. You should probably remember that's actually quite a bit less than combat power we have in our stacks, our army up here. So now we have a little bit more information. Finally, I want us to point out one more thing, is that Decaturville is still flying the Confederate flag. So, and the reason that is early on in the war, basically the cavalry generally cannot capture a town or a city. Now later on that does change as those tactics can change. Early in the war there's a limitation. So of course our forces can be there, but we actually haven't captured the town. Having said that, we weren't really that interested in the town. We were interested in what is down here in the fog of war, and now we can see Withers' division is led by Braxton Bragg. So, all right, that's very basic points on the user interface. So you can always click on a stack. Oh, I'll show you one other thing. You can also, if you want to see each three pictures, you can sort of drag them into separate. That does not change any sort of fighting. That does not change any sort of fighting stance or fighting situation. These already were separate. Okay, so they were just the game just stacks them on top of each other. But sometimes you might be interested in to see different ones. All right, so this has been Tutorial Basics Part 2, and I think maybe the next turn we might have our first actual battle. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. All right, see you next time.